Hi. I'm Valerio. I'm a slam poet from Switzerland, means I write poems in German and in Swiss German language and perform them on stage. And as some of you already have noticed, my English isn't that good, but as probably more of you also already have noticed, with my accent, I am very, very cute. Am I? And I do not know if it was because of my cuteness, but for some reason, a poetry festival in Mozambique decided to invite me to read my poems on their stage. I never planned to go to Mozambique before. I did a little research. Mozambique is on the other side of the planet, and they mostly speak Portuguese. So my English isn't that good, but my Portuguese doesn't even exist. I had a problem. On one hand, I felt very honored to get invited, to have this possibility to go there. On the other hand, I wasn't sure if it was a good idea to go there to perform my poems. I had two options. Option one, I translate my poems, but with translation always comes a loss in quality. I won't be able to translate my feeling for my language. I won't be able to translate my word games, my rhymes. I won't be on point as I am in German. So option two, I just take my German poems and go there on stage and perform them as they are. But if I do this, nobody will understand what I am talking about. Nobody will get my story, will get my thoughts, will get the feelings I like to express in the way I like to show them. So I had to come up with a third option. And then I was thinking about it, and while I was thinking about it, I remembered when I was young. I know I do not look that young, I'm 32 years old, but at the moment, I never was as old as I am now, so in a way, this is the oldest me that ever existed, so I am very old in this way at the moment. So when I was young, back in the days, I went to a lot of concerts, and I remember one specific concert from a Swedish band. They were in Switzerland on stage, and they were singing their Swedish songs, and I was there in the middle of the audience, didn't understood a word, I didn't speak Swedish either, and I was there, and I was singing along, and I think most of the other people in the audience also didn't understood a word, but everyone was singing along in the refrains. I hope they didn't had problematic lyrics. I still don't know until now. It's always a risk if you sing along and do not understand anything. But they hooked us. They hooked all in the audience. And then I remembered further. I remembered Icelandic folk bands, folk music. I remembered Balkan brass bands. I also remembered the early Dada movement where they tried to write poems just with sounds, not with words, only with sounds. And I remembered all this, and I had a feeling that this could be my way to write a poem for Mozambique. So a few days later, I went to a shirt shop in Switzerland. And there in the shirt shop, there was a shirt seller. There are usually shirt sellers in shirt shops. So I went to this shirt seller in this shirt shop, and I asked the shirt seller, "Excuse me, do you have shirts?" in Swiss German, Heiterhemli. And he answered, "Yes, we have shirts. Hemli heimer." Hammer heiter Hemli, heiter Sommerhemli. Sommerhemli nimmt die nämlich ohne Hemmung. Ja, wir haben Hammer-Sommerhemli, wir haben Sommerhemli mit langen Ärmeln, wir haben Sommerhemli mit kurzen Ärmeln. Hammer hat der Sommerhemli mit langen Ärmeln. Ich nehme die Sommerhemli mit kurzen Ärmeln, hat der Sommerhemli mit einem Hummer drauf. Ja, oh, Hummer-Sommerhemli haben wir haben Hummer-Sommerhemli mit 100 Hummer drauf, wir haben Hummer-Sommerhemli mit einem Hummer drauf. Hammer hat der Hummer-Sommerhemli mit 100 Hummer drauf. Ich nehme ein Sommerhemli mit einem Hummer drauf. And then I bought this shirt. So if you ever in Switzerland, if you are ever in Switzerland in the situation to buy a shirt, that's the way to do it. And then I went out of the store. I had my shirt with me. I was there, and I had to write down the conversation I just had because I realized this situation had a lot of comedy potential, not because of the things we talked about, but because of the sound, how the words worked together. So I knew this is the way to write my poems for Mozambique. And in the next weeks, I changed my way to find inspiration. I changed my way to find ideas. I changed my way to write my poems. And I still remember my friends hated me in this time because there were a lot of situations when we were in the middle of a discussion and we had an argument, and in the middle of the argument I shouted, "Stop, stop, stop, what did you just say there? That sounded funny, you have to repeat it, I have to write it down." They really hated me. But I also remember this one situation when we were going to a hill nearby where I live. It was early in the morning. Our goal was to see the sunrise, and to get there we had to walk through a local zoo with local animals with deers and donkeys, and we walked there. And while we were walking there, besides the cages, I saw this sign, Reykjavik, and I loved this word. Reykjavik, how it sounds. It means the cages where the deers live in. and I took this word, and while we were watching the sunrise, I already were writing my poem to this word, and I came up with the following poem. It's about the guy who cares about the ways between the cages where the deers live in. Goes like this. Ich pflege rege Hege Wege, eben rege Hegewege Pfleger. Doch wegen Regen werden rege Hegewege immer schräger, und nun pflege ich im Regen rege Hegewege. Ungepflegte rege Hegewege regen eben jene, deren Wege über rege Hegewege laufen auf. Aufgeregte rege Hegewege gehe, habe ich eben eher weniger Lust. Eben deswegen pflege ich eben rege jene rege Hegewege, auch mit schrägen rege Hegewegen, wegen Regen eben, auch im Nebel eben will mein ganzes Leben rege Hegewege pflegen. Thank you. And I wrote a lot of those short poems, and I collected them, and then I went to Mozambique. And I still remember the moment just before I went on stage. I was really, really, really nervous because I flew half around the world and I still didn't know, would this work? All my writing, all my ideas, would this work, or will I fail on stage? Will they get what I like to say, to do with my new written poems? Would it be worth it to fly half around the world just for a little experiment, just to try something out? So I went on this stage and I started with my first poem, Hemli, and I was there, and I saw the faces in the audience, the faces in the front row, and I saw how I confused them. I saw how confused they were, but I had to go on, and I read the next poem and the next poem, and as I went on, they really started to feel it, and in the end, they loved what I was doing. Even after the show, there were some Mozambican guys coming to me, trying to recreate what I just did on the stage. Even if they didn't understand the word, and that was really touching because I realized I managed to recreate this feeling I had when I was in middle of the Swedish concert. And why do I tell this to you? Maybe there are also people which are listening, which also work in a creative way. And if you do, you probably have your routines, you have your ways to do your stuff, you have your techniques, and that's okay. I also have my routines and my techniques, but from time to time, it's very important to improve and maybe to break with these routines. And what I learned in Mozambique was, it helps me to throw myself into a situation where my usual work didn't work anymore, where I have to come up with new solutions, new ways to write, new ways to think, And that's what I what I tried to say with my little story. So to end my TED talk, I have one last short poem from this time. It's about edamame. I don't know if you know edamame, the small soya beans. They are very tasty. You have to try them. And, and I wrote this small poem about a guy who tries to offer his edamame to another guy. It goes like this. Hast du gesehen, ha? Hast du gesehen, ha? Hast du gesehen? Edamame. Kannst du Edamame nehmen? Und machst mehr Edamame, kann dir mehr Edamame geben. Edamame nehmen. Oder machst keine Edamame mehr. Sagst, wer hat keine Edamame mehr, mag keine Edamame mehr gesehen. Dann musst du schon keine Edamame mehr nehmen. Du musst nur Edamame nehmen, wenn du Edamame machst geben. Weil ich nehme sie nicht, Edamame, nehme ich nicht. Und nimmst du keine Edamame mehr, dann habe ich mehr Edamame. Yeah! Thank you very much.